So my name is Mikko Hyppönen. I'm the Chief Research Officer at F-Secure Corporation. And we'll be talking the next hour and 15 minutes on the topic of cell phones and mobile devices, a little bit about PDAs, a little bit about what's been happening on the malware front so far, where we are today, and where we think we will be in the future. So if you look at the big picture, we have around a little over 6 billion people on this planet right now, and a little bit over 2 billion mobile phones. 6 billion people, 2 billion mobile phones, and the number is rising pretty fast. We are soon going to reach 3 billion phones on this planet, but we will never reach 4 billion active phones. And I base that claim on the fact that according to information I've received is that this planet, roughly 4 billion people on this planet use a toothbrush. So if you're not using a toothbrush, you're probably not going to use a phone either. Now, out of those 2 billion phones that we have, vast majority of them are old school, simple, non-smart phones, which means they are pretty much immune to the kinds of risks we're talking about today. We're talking about smartphones, phones where you can install software software that has functionality enough to be able to be used for good and for bad. We are mostly going to talk about smartphones running operating systems which are publicly accessible and extendable by the users, where there are publicly accessible SDKs available and things like that. Operating systems like Windows Mobile, like Symbian, Linux, and others. Of course, there are closed smartphones in the market as well. Some of the BlackBerries could be considered those. iPhone probably is the prime example of a closed smartphone, which is in the marketplace right now. But as we'll be seeing, there are quite big differences based on the operating systems of the smartphones, on how big problems there are, and there are quite a big difference geographically on where the problems are. Let me start by showing a couple of photos from our labs. As the Chief Research Officer, I'm in charge of our lab operations, which we do in multiple different locations. F-Secure has offices in 15 countries right now with around, what do we have, 550 people working for us. These are photos from our lab in Helsinki, where we are analyzing malware on all the platforms that we support, which of course means Windows and Linux and, surprisingly, mobile phones. Our headquarters in Helsinki, which is where I spend most of my time, are like 2 miles away from the headquarters of Nokia, which of course partly explains why we've been fairly interested in mobile phone risks and mobile phone viruses and mobile phone malware in general. But that's by no means the main area of where we are actually making most of our money from. F-Secure is in the business of selling security solutions, and of course most of those go to the Windows users. Now, we do have quite a bit of staff working for us who are focusing on mobile issues and spend their time doing nothing except that. And when you work with mobile viruses, things are a little bit different than they are on the Windows platform. This thing I'm running here in the background is an example of the technology we've developed. This is a system that can take static code and just turn it into a visual 3D representation. In this case, it's a file which is infected by a bagel virus. But when you start to work with mobile malware, it's a bit different in many ways. I suppose the most important difference is that when you're working with Windows malware, you can do the analysis on normal computers or use virtual machines and whatever. You can just take an old computer and infect it and see what it does. But when you take mobile phone viruses, it's not that simple. Main difference is the fact that these mobile devices and mobile replication typically works by using wireless connections like Bluetooth or multimedia messages or potentially things like SMS messages or mobile email and so on. And of course those are radio connections, and radio connections go through the walls, which means when you want to work with mobile viruses you have to have a secure area. So we have two of these shielded rooms or RF labs that we've built with copper aluminum lining on the walls, and when you close the door, the room is shielded up to 35 gigahertz, so it will shield, well, Bluetooth, Zigbee, Wi-Fi, GSM, 3G, what have you. And the logic is that as long as the door is closed, no one else is allowed to open the door so the viruses don't leak out and escape, sort of like biological viruses. But that's really the way we are doing it. We have 2 of these labs, and right now we're using them probably 2-3 times a week for real use. So that's the rate of incoming samples that we are seeing in our systems. Now if we look at, talk about incoming samples, let me just quickly show you a glimpse of how we're actually working with samples and sample stuff in our labs. This is our main sampler repository where we store all the virus samples that arrive to our systems. And right now we have very close to 5 million files in this system. Out of those, as you can see from the figure right here, 2,401 are mobile samples. Now there's duplicates in there, there's clean files in there, but if we go back, we have 5 million files in our repository and only 2,400 of them are mobile related in any way. It just shows that it's a very small part of the full picture are the mobile related stuff. But that's of course good news, and that's the way we'd like to keep it. And if we play our cards right, that's the way it will stay. Now whenever I speak about mobile viruses and mobile trojans and mobile spying tools to people, depends on where in the world the people are, but I regularly get suspicion about the whole question, or surprised looks that, are you really serious? Do they really exist? Aren't those just an urban legend? Or that, okay, maybe they do exist, but surely they are not spreading really anywhere, and nobody really gets them, or even if they do, they are doing it on purpose. This can't really be happening out there. But in fact, it is happening out there. Well, I think a good example is that in my own personal phone, I'm keeping Bluetooth open and visible to everybody. I've been keeping for a number of years. Of course, I'm running an antivirus on my phone, so I'll dare to do it. And during the last 2 years, I've received 4 times a Bluetooth virus infection attempt to my phone. Once in London, once in Stockholm, twice in Helsinki. Of course, I've never got the infection, but somebody's tried to infect me. And of course, the people who have tried to infect me didn't know that they tried to infect me. They had no idea that their own phone was infected to begin with. But yes, they are going around in the real world. And there's around 370 of them at the moment. There have already been, we claim, tens of thousands of infected devices worldwide. We have confirmed reports of infections caused by worms like Kabir and Comvorrier from 30 different countries at least. We work closely with multiple mobile phone manufacturers. We work closely with players like Symbian and Microsoft regarding these mobile platform operating systems. And we work closely with mobile phone operators. We get statistics, real stuff from the operator networks about how much malicious traffic they are seeing. Now, of course, they only see part of this traffic. For example, Bluetooth traffic never goes through the operators, so they never see any of that. But then again, multimedia messages or MMS messages do. And for example, one operator with 9 million customers estimated that close to 5% of all of their MMS traffic is caused not by people, but by viruses. And of course, the vast majority of MMS messages, when they are being used by normal people for normal purposes, is people snap photos with their camera phones and send the photo to someone else via MMS. But a surprisingly large amount of that traffic is already caused by malware. One operator with 14 million customers shared us figures that they had seen over 8,000 infected devices in their network, which had sent close to 500,000 MMS messages. One of the phones had sent 3,500 messages. And you can, of course, start to do the math. Depends on where you are in the world and how much a single message costs you, but this could be thousands of dollars. Now, for any platform, for something like this to start happen, you have to have the basic prerequisite is you have to have enough functionality on the devices itself. They have to be programmable. You have to have enough connectivity for something to start to spread. And then you have to have enough of the devices themselves, so it becomes an interesting target for someone to start to do this for real. And, well, again, if you go back to the iPhone example, the iPhone target is very small. We have only a few 100,000 of those actually out there, which is nothing. But look at the hype and look at the interest. So it's not just about the amount of machines, but there are other factors in play too. Now, I said in the beginning that there's quite important differences on where in the world we are and what do these problems look like. And this is largely coming from the quite big differences on what kind of smartphones are the market leaders in which parts of the world. Here in the United States, everybody carries a BlackBerry. If not, they carry a Windows mobile device or then an old school phone, which is not a smartphone at all. You go to Europe, everybody has a Symbian-based smartphone. You go to most parts of Asia, same thing. Then you go to Japan, and most of these iMode devices that they are using, well, they used to be based on Linux, but nowadays, majority of those are Symbian-based as well. So let's look at some of the statistics on this. I'm showing a couple of slides from the mobile analyst company Canalys with permission to show them. And the numbers are quite interesting. This is the global markets, how many devices different mobile manufacturers shipped in Q1 2007. Largest by far Nokia. Number 2 Research in Motion. Number 3 Sharp, Motorola, Palm. So this is the global market with 23 million smartphones being sold during those months in the beginning of the year. And as you can see, Nokia shipped 12 million of those. Then let's look at the regional differences. This is smartphone market in Americas. That's USA, Canada, and South America. RIM, leader by far. Palm, number 2. And of course, most of Palm's devices by now are shipping Windows Mobile as the operating system. Then Samsung, again with Windows Mobile-based devices. Then, number 4, Nokia. Far behind the other players. RIM's shipments close to 1.6 million smartphones. Same statistics for Europe, Middle East, and Asia for the same time period. Totally different. Nokia, number 1, others almost insignificant. And compare the numbers, amount of smartphones being shipped in Europe in Q1 2007. Just Nokia alone, close to 7 million smartphones. Let's go back to USA. RIM shipped 1.6 million. So there's quite big difference on what kind of smartphones are being shipped out and the actual amount of smartphones being shipped out. So multiple times more smartphones are being sold in Europe, for example. Don't have the statistics for Asia here on me, but they're similar. And if you look at the total platform coverage right now, we'll see that Symbian-based devices, Series 60, Symbian UIQ, and other Symbian-based devices are the vast majority of the actual smartphones out there today. So why am I speaking about this? Well, this is important because when we look at the actual malware, they are almost all targeting Symbian. They are not targeting BlackBerries, they're not targeting Windows Mobile, they're not targeting pretty much anything else except Symbian. And that's, of course, based on the same fact that the markets are ruled by this operating system. So what is Symbian? Some of you might have had Psions as a PDA close to 10 years ago. Psion Revo, for example, used to be fairly popular. Manufactured by a company in the United Kingdom, which later on stopped making hardware and started making just an operating system, which then other mobile players started to invest in. Today the company is owned by Psion, by Sony Ericsson, I think Motorola still owns something in it, and Nokia. And it only makes operating systems, and it is the king of the hill at the moment. Then when we look at statistics from our internal sample inflow, this is where we are today. From summer 2004, when in June we found the very first mobile phone virus, Kabir, to where we are today. Right now we have 372 mobile phone viruses, Trojans, or spying tools. If you compare that to the PC side, where we have over 300,000 mobile viruses and Trojans and what have you, so it's quite a big difference. But that's where we are on the mobile side. And we can divide those examples of malware to basic groups: viruses, worms, Trojans, and spy tools. And of course, there are many other things that could eventually appear, but hasn't appeared yet, including mobile rootkits, which is a nasty thought. Mobile worms that would be completely automated, would spread without any user involvement or without needing any social engineering parts. Haven't seen mobile botnets yet, and trust me, those probably will appear sooner or later. Botnets that, well, one thing that does worry me about these mobile threats and mobile malware is that if you think about problems like spam, everybody keeps getting email spam all the time. It's been a big problem for 10 years already. But we don't get mobile spam that much. No, mobile spam, I mean like text messages or multimedia messages with, images in there and things like that. That really doesn't seem to be a big problem anywhere in the world. And the reason is you can send email for free, totally for free. You cannot send mobile content for free. There's no easy way to do it totally free. You can do it for very, very low cost, but that's not going to help you if you want to spam, which means you want to send out millions and millions of messages. So sooner or later, some player out there will figure this out, and we will see mobile botnets or something like the fact that a mobile virus or mobile Trojan or perhaps a game is being distributed with hidden functionality. And then, in the middle of the night, all the devices that have the malware running will start to send MMS Viagra ads to every single phone number in the phone book. And of course, that nicely creates free content delivery for the spammers. Now they not only can send content anonymously, they can also send it for free, and they also have the target list who to send it to by using the phone books of the devices. Hasn't happened yet, but it's such an obvious development that it will probably happen sooner or later. Now, we also haven't seen large-scale profit-oriented malware on mobile devices, which means we haven't seen much professional virus writers. And of course, that's exactly what we are seeing on the PC side, professional virus writing. Vast majority of the stuff that we see on Windows today are being written by professional virus writers who make a living by writing viruses. Who wake up, go to work from 9 to 5 and just write viruses and make their living out of that. Happens all the time. We haven't really seen that on the mobile side. So let me illustrate that to you. I have here a photo which was taken either in 2000 or 2001 in the city of Prague in Czech Republic. This is 29A, one of the last old school virus writing gangs, which wrote viruses for the heck of it. Wrote viruses because they could. Wrote viruses for fame. Wrote viruses that broke new grounds. They especially like to write viruses for new platforms, like the world's first 64-bit virus and the world's first Windows NT virus, things like that. This group doesn't exist anymore. They got disbanded or broke up a couple of years ago. But they had no higher costs. They never spread their viruses. They basically published them in their own online magazine and so on. But then I have here another photo. This photo was taken last November in the city of Balakov in Western Russia. We have here, from left to right, Mr. Alexander Petrov, Mr. Denis Stepanov, and Mr. Ivan Maksakov. Ivan Maksakov, the guy in the white jacket, wrote a bot, Windows bot, which they distributed and infected around 200,000 PCs around the world, which they then used to launch denial-of-service attacks against mostly US and UK web shops and companies. And they were targeting online shops which only operated in the internet, which didn't have real-world shops, just online shops. So if your website goes down, your business halts. And they were asking for ransoms to stop the attacks. In the early days of their attacks, they were asking for $20,000 a pop, later on $40,000 a pop to stop the attacks. And they attacked several hundred websites, in the end earning over $4 million before they were caught. So, these guys did it to earn $4 million. These guys did it for fun. For $4 million, for fun. For $4 million, for fun. Spot the difference. So that's what I'm talking about. That's the change that we've seen on the PC side started like 5 years ago. Today, vast majority of the stuff we see is written by guys like these. Hasn't yet happened on the mobile side. We've seen some examples, but nothing major yet. And of course, mobile devices are, totally different from this perspective, because there's no easy, straightforward way to convert infected Windows boxes to money. You can try to find valuable information from the machine, like scan the hard drive for credit card numbers and steal them, or scour all the email addresses from all the files and sell them to spammers. That's one thing that they do. Or steal your World of Warcraft logins, then steal the gold and sell it in eBay. That happens too. Steal credentials to, online logins to banks, or insert extra transactions when people go to pay their bills. Happens too. Or do what these guys did, launch denial of service attacks, ask for ransom money. These are all things that are happening all the time, but they are all quite complex, don't you think? Lots of steps to do to convert an infected box into money. And that's because there is no built-in billing mechanism in Windows boxes. However, there is a built-in billing mechanism in this. We are all paying, well, if not a monthly bill, then a pay-as-you-go bill or something. These are directly tied into account and into money. So if you can own lots of these, you can convert that to money directly. Make the infected phone call a premium rate number or send premium SMS messages. As simple as that. So from the attacker's point of view, the potential for making money out of infected devices is much easier to fulfill with infected phones than with infected computers. Again, from our statistics about what we've been seeing starting from 2004. So it's been pretty much exactly 3 years now since we saw the first attacks, or first malware on mobile devices. So that's the total where we are today. And as you can see, it is Symbian that is the main issue. Other platforms are almost insignificant on this matter. Of course, we can't ignore the fact that Java has a couple of malware running on it, and which then means it runs on pretty much anything. But these really aren't spreading in the wild. And then if we categorize these by type, we'll see that vast majority of those mobile malware are Trojans, which means they don't even try to spread further. Viruses try to spread further using variety of mechanisms to do that. Trojans just install on the phone, they do something nasty, and that's it. They don't even try to spread anywhere after that. And then we have spyware. Now, if you look at these Trojans a little bit closer, we quite quickly realize that the motives of these guys writing malware for mobile device right now are pretty stupid, or pretty childish. So what they're trying to do is to cause damage, destroy files, prevent your phone from rebooting, show stupid messages on screen. Things like what we used to see on the PC side, again, in the early days. And that's an important thing to realize too, because even today, still today in 2007, there are people out there who are worried about Windows viruses, that the virus will infect my home computer and it will destroy my files. Well, hello, that doesn't happen today at all anymore. We aren't seeing destructive viruses on Windows platforms at all. Yeah, it used to be the norm. That's what they did 10 years ago. Today, I don't remember. It must be 2 years since the last time we saw a destructive virus, which would just destroy your files or format your hard drive for fun. Because the attacker doesn't benefit anything if he deletes files from random people around the world. So they don't do that. However, we still see that, exactly that, deleting files, deleting phone books, preventing rebooting of the phone on the mobile malware side. So in many ways, if we saw the first PC virus in 1986, in many ways, from the point of view of that, we are now living 1989 when we look at the mobile malware, where we are and what they do. So cases like the Doom Boot family breaks the phone, won't let your phone reboot again. Skulls breaks phone services, like you can't send messages, can't surf the web, can't launch the camera. Mosquito and Red Browser start to send SMS messages in large scale to premium rate numbers. BB Stealer steals your phone book, and then doesn't try to send it to the guy who wrote the virus. It tries to send it to any random recipient who happens to be close by. So it steals information from your phone and sends it to someone else, which is, I'm sure, very funny. Card block. This only affects the memory card of your phone. As you know, almost all smartphones have an external memory card. So it will try to lock the memory card. And this is a feature of memory cards. They can be locked with a passcode. So it generates a random passcode and locks the memory card, making your card, which could be, $100 worth of it might cost you $100 to buy a big card, and it would make it useless. And card block, last example here, deletes your email, your SMS messages, and other stuff from your phone. So destructive in different ways. I should also note that we've seen quite a few destructive Trojans and viruses for mobile devices, but we haven't seen anything that we couldn't clean. Even if you have something like Doom Boot, which prevents your phone from rebooting, we can still get it up and working by using special memory cards that have been prepared and then booting from the memory card, basically. So we haven't yet seen anything that we couldn't get out of the phones. We have seen stuff that will... we've analyzed, for example, the PSP, Sony PSP game console Trojans, and we have seen game console Trojans which will break the PSP, so it won't. We can't recover it, and Sony couldn't recover it anymore. So it's pretty nasty things, but we haven't seen that on the mobile side, not yet anyway. Then we will look how these things actually arrive to the user. Vast majority of these require the user to actually download it from the web and install. These are the different Trojans that are being distributed on Symbian download sites. That, here's a shareware application which will double your web surfing speed, or here's a neat game, or here's nude pictures of Christina Aguilera. And people download them and put them on their phones. But then when we look at replication mechanisms like real viruses, then Bluetooth beaming is by far the most common. MMS, multimedia messages, is the next one. And memory cards is the least used version. That's when we look at the numbers of the actual viruses. Then when we look at the real world, talk to people who actually have been infected or have been affected by some of this mobile malware, and look how they got it. It looks a little bit different. By far the most common mechanism of being hit by something like this is that somebody beamed it to you over Bluetooth. Number 2, multimedia messages. Number 3, downloading something. And number 4, memory cards. And there are, of course, other mechanisms that could be used to spread mobile phone malware, but they haven't been used yet, like mobile email. Not a single attempt yet by anybody, by any of the mobile phone virus writers, to write a virus which would replicate over email, which is, frankly, quite surprising, looking how all the phones support email. Not a single attempt to spread infections through SMS, which would be pretty trivial to write, an SMS virus, but nobody's tried it. Wi-Fi, peer-to-peer, instant messaging, these are all possibilities, but only those 4 mechanisms have actually been used in the real world. So, geographically, who, where writes these things? Well, vast majority of the malware authors, we don't know. For some of those, we have some sort of information, putting the hotspot to Europe, South America, and different parts of Asia, to countries like Norway, Spain, Brazil, and in Asia, places like India, Malaysia, Indonesia, Philippines, China, and so on. Where are the actual infections happening then? Vast majority of the reports that we actually get from the field are coming either from Europe or from Southeast Asia. Then there are some individual hotspots like Middle East. Many of the Arab countries like Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates often report infections to us. Same thing for South Africa, surprisingly. Practically no report, very few reports from North America. Almost 0 reports from South Korea and Japan because of the different technologies in use over there, and because of the fact that, for example, Japanese operators like NTT Docomo very heavily restrict what the users can do with their phones. For example, they can't install third-party applications unless it has been signed by the operator. And of course, the operator doesn't sign the viruses, so users can't install them even if they wanted to. So the reason why Symbian is being targeted, first of all, Symbian is a range of different operating systems. What really is being targeted is Symbian Series 60, 2nd edition. And it's being targeted because it's very common, it's easy to access, it's easy to program, And probably one of the biggest reasons, there's lots of existing virus code. Because if you look at the viruses and malware out there for Symbian, most of those are just modified versions of earlier Symbian viruses. So these kids download the code, modify it a bit, or take down the binary and hex edit it and put it back out. That's what's causing the numbers to go up on the Symbian side. So if you look at the variant count in different families, we see that almost all of the family, or a big part of the families on Symbian side, have more than 10, more than 20 members in those families. So this tells us that there's just lots of variant hacking going around. Somebody taking an existing virus and making it a new one. In 2004, before we saw the first real mobile phone viruses, we were talking about what they will look like and what the first mobile phone viruses will look like when they come out. And I remember that I was betting that the first viruses will be targeting Windows Mobile. Because, many people hate Microsoft and they want to target Microsoft with their viruses. Plus, Windows Mobile, it's a Win32 platform. You can even go to Microsoft.com and download a guide which will assist you how to take any existing Windows XP source code and how to convert it to run under Windows Mobile. And there's tons of existing virus code, source code available for Windows XP based viruses. So you would think that somebody would take the source code of, Bagel and port it to Windows Mobile. And then it would spread from one Windows Mobile phone to another Windows Mobile phone using email, just like the original virus did. So that's what I was expecting, that's where it starts from, because that's the easiest thing to do. Well, I was wrong. We haven't seen that even today. Instead of seeing ports of existing viruses, we started to see completely new viruses written from scratch using a replication mechanism which had never been used before, which was Bluetooth. So that's what Kabir was using. So in many ways it is a good question why Windows Mobile hasn't been targeted more than it already has. The market share explains a bit, but not really everything. And my best guess would be that it will be targeted more in the future. In fact, if you look where we are going right now, the latest Symbian phones aren't being targeted almost at all for reasons that I'll get into a bit later. And I would think that the most activity in the near future might be happening on Windows Mobile and on iPhone. So when we found the first virus, Kabir, this was in June 2004, it was a simple, stupid proof of concept virus which was spreading via Bluetooth. It didn't break the security model of Bluetooth or of the operating system at all. It was simply trying to beam itself to other recipients who were close by, close to the phone. So what it looks like when it arrives to your phone, it shows up as a series of questions. Receive message via Bluetooth from, and it shows the name of the sending phone, which has to be within the Bluetooth range, which is like, 30 feet around you. Could be behind walls or behind ceilings, but close to you anyway. Yes or no? If you answer yes, it will ask you, install Caribe. Yes or no? And if you answer yes, then it will ask you, or actually warn you, installation security warning, unable to verify supplier, continue anyway. Yes or no? And if you stupidly click yes, then you are infected. So when you think about this, you would think that, that will never, ever happen in the real world. Like nobody's going to get this virus. That's what it looks like. However, when we actually look at this for real, it looks quite different. Let me show this to you with a video we've shot in our RF lab. What we have here is two phones. The phone here on the right we are now infecting on purpose with the Kabir Bluetooth virus. And this here is a clean phone, which is just sitting there with Bluetooth enabled and Bluetooth visible. For example, the user has connected his phone to a Bluetooth headset and then just left Bluetooth enabled, which is what happens by default. Now we run Kabir, it's scanning the room to find another Bluetooth device, and since there's no other devices in the room, it's going to find the phone on the left side. So you could think that the phone on the left side is your phone. You could think about this, that you are in a bar, having a beer, here in Vegas. That's the phone in your pocket. Someone else walks to the same bar with an infected phone, and walks within the Bluetooth range, and starts to beam you the virus. It will show up on your phone screen with that message. Receive message via Bluetooth from and the name of the sending phone. However, it's important to understand that now when this appears on your screen, your phone doesn't ring. your phone doesn't vibrate. It just asks you this question. And of course the phone is in your pocket, so you're not going to notice this. You're there having your beer for 10 more minutes. Then you remember, oh my God, I'm supposed to call my wife. And then you pick up the phone from your pocket and start to punch in the numbers only to realize that you can't. You can't use the phone for anything else as long as this message is on screen. So you have to answer the message. Numbers won't work. You press the menu button, nothing happens. So you have to. This is not optional. It's mandatory. You have to answer yes or no. Can't ignore it. So of course you're going to answer no because you don't know what's this. You don't care what's going on. You just want to make the stupid phone call. So you press the no button. But as soon as you press the no button, it sends itself again. It sends itself again. It sends itself again. It sends itself again. So it looks to the average user like that the no button doesn't work. So there's this stupid phone. You need to make a phone call. You can't use the phone. The no button doesn't work. This goddamn stupid thing. And of course, what else? The average user definitely is going to click yes button because he needs to make a phone call. No button doesn't work and there's no other option. And this is the explanation why mobile phone viruses over Bluetooth have been any kind of problem in the real world. It is a user interface issue. As simple as that. This user interface feature causes the problem. Now, of course, what the user should have done instead is simply to leave the room. Walk away from the infected device. Walk away from the Bluetooth range and the message will disappear. It will just go away silently. And then you can use the phone for whatever you want. You can make the call to your wife and, go to the menu, switch the Bluetooth to hidden mode, whatever you want. But of course, it's not obvious to the normal user. Think about it. I got this weird message to my mobile phone screen, so I'm going to leave the room. It doesn't make any sense. Kabir, surprisingly, is still spreading in the wild today. We keep getting reports from multiple different locations 3 years after it was found. And it's slowly and surely traveling the world as people travel. So it's really spreading like biological disease, like the flu. It's unable to beam itself over the Atlantic. Someone has to take an infected phone and board a plane and fly to Europe to spread this from USA to Europe and so on. Actually, it came here the other way around, the infections. We actually know exactly how it came from Asia to Europe. We most likely found the original infection vector, one guy who brought it accidentally to Europe, and then it's been spreading from Europe to USA. And viruses like this spread especially well when you have people from multiple different locations, possibly even multiple different countries, gather to a single location, like a conference room, where they are within a beaming distance of each other. And then after the conference or whatever, they leave and go back to their own countries and states and whatever. So we've seen some of these outbreaks in mass happenings, like concerts and sporting events and things like that. We were doing some sort of prototype testing on the Bluetooth, like just how popular Bluetooth devices are and how much of those are discoverable and visible publicly. And this picture is from CeBIT fair in Germany, which is by far the largest IT fair in the world. It's literally hell on earth. I recommend everybody to avoid it. This is our booth in there, and we were actually running inside this table in here. We had a small embedded device running an ARM processor and 3 Class 2 Bluetooth radios, and we were scanning everybody who were close by our booth and collecting information for the duration of the fair. And during that fair, we found 22,500 Bluetooth devices. 22,500 devices which were within our booth during the fair, which had Bluetooth, had it enabled, and had it visible. So these things are mighty common. This thing actually even accepts OBEX file transfers. So if somebody is actually walking around with an infected phone, it will accept it, the file transmission, and scan it and show it what was being beamed. And it will even lie. These 3 radios, one of them claims to be a Windows mobile device, one of them claims to be a Windows laptop, and one of them claims to be a Symbian phone. So it will accept transmissions if malware only wants to beam, for example, to a Symbian phone. So I'd like to introduce Jarno Niemelä to the stage. Jarno is senior antivirus researcher in our labs, and he's going to assist a bit with a couple of demos we're going to run for you today. So what we're going to show next through the video camera over here is a case with, let's see if I can get the interlacing on. Here we go. What we have here is, what's the number of this phone? Nokia what? 6830?
6680.
6680. So this is a Symbian Series 60 second edition phone from 2 years ago, so it's not a brand new phone. But what we're going to demonstrate is the infection mechanism or mechanism on how you might get malware on your phone without seeing any kind of prompts. The prompts you saw in the video regarding Bluetooth are pretty much similar to what you get over multimedia messages if you get an MMS virus to your phone. But when we're talking about things like Skull's Trojan, it's quite different. And this is safe to show you over here because this is not a Trojan. It's not going to try to replicate further from this phone over here because, of course, that would be a stupid idea to show it over here. So Jarno has a memory card over here. Can you show the card to the camera?
Yes.
So here's a memory card which is taken from an infected device, and we are now just going to insert it into this device. So you can imagine that you're swapping games with your friend from one phone to another by just putting in a memory card. And pay attention, we just put in the card. We are not going to do anything else. We are not clicking anything, we are not accepting anything, we are not getting any kind of warnings. Regardless of that, roughly 10 seconds from after it was inserted, boom. And now if Jarno goes and tries to, for example, open the phone book, if you go there, or calendar, or messaging,
phone book's working.
Phone book works because it was running when we started. But for example, go to calendar, and it won't start. So it breaks the applications. And that's all you really had to do, put in the memory card. No prompts, no nothing. So at the extreme, it can be fairly impossible to notice the user what's really going on. Other variants of this same Trojan exist, including this D variant, which shows a full screen, flashing skull, and things like that. But these probably aren't too interesting. I think the most interesting mobile malware we've seen over these years is ComWarrior, which is a Russian-written virus. We don't know who wrote it. We know his nickname. And this is a combination of spreading mechanism. It spreads over Bluetooth and it spreads over multimedia messages. The way it works is that it depends on the variant. But for example, ComWarrior A works depending on the time of the day. So if it is from 8 a.m. in the morning to midnight, it spreads over Bluetooth, finds devices that are close to you and beams itself over. Because during the daytime you're walking close to other people, right? It makes sense to spread over Bluetooth. Then from midnight to 7 a.m., it doesn't spread over Bluetooth at all. Instead, it sends MMS messages to every single number you have in your phone book, to your friends and family. And the messages look like they're coming from you, and they contain an attachment, which is, of course, the virus itself. And it does this during the nighttime because it doesn't know which of the numbers in your phone book are mobile numbers and which of those are landline numbers. And when you send an MMS message to a landline number, it will bounce back and cause an error message on screen, which you would see during the daytime. But during the nighttime, you're sleeping, so you won't. And this leaves 1 hour from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And during that hour, it cleans the logs, removes all the evidence of anything ever happening. That's the logic of this virus. Fairly advanced in design. And of course, fairly expensive, because if you have I have 1,400 contacts in my phone book, in my phone. And if I would send an MMS message to every single one of those, that would cost, 50 cents a message. Well, that's 700 euros or dollars. So yeah, it's pretty expensive. Here's another video clip showing 5 clean phones on the desk. Oh, here we go. And we're now running or infecting the phone up here. But just pay attention how quickly it finds the devices on the table. These all have Bluetooth enabled. Plop, 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 plop. But of course, none of them gets infected just that easy. It still requires the users of those phones to accept it and install it. Then we've seen things like CardTrap, which is a combo virus. It's a Symbian virus, but it also drops a Windows virus to your memory card. And I guess the logic here is that if you get infected by a mobile phone virus to your phone, at least some of us would try to figure out what's going on and how to get rid of it. And it's pretty logical to think that you would take the memory card out, and the virus is probably on the card, put the card to your memory card reader in your PC and look at what's on the memory card. Now when you do this, what it does is that it drops files Windows viruses to the memory card. Specifically, it drops a Windows virus with the name system.exe, and this file contains, the icon of this file is the default folder icon of Windows, which means one of these is the virus, the other one is the normal system folder, which is by default on the memory card. So which one would you click on? You know, one of them is a virus, one of them is a folder. By default, Windows hides the extension, of course, so you don't really see which is which. That's the logic on how it tries to trick the people into infecting not just their phone, but also their computer while they are cleaning up the mobile phone virus. Autorun, it also drops an autorun in file, but I'm not aware of any system which would by default run autorun files from memory cards when you use those. 2 months ago, we found a mobile phone virus called Viver, or Viver. And this is the first internationally operational profit run virus we've seen. We've seen 2 attempts of doing this, but they only work within Russia. This works internationally. Once you get infected, and you get infected by downloading this program from Symbian shareware sites, it starts to send a premium rate SMS from your phone. And it will send them every 5 minutes. And every one of those premium rate SMSs will cost you $7. The number it sends them to is it's on an island of Antigua or somewhere in the Pacific, and the profits of that number are going back to the guy who wrote the virus. Pretty clever, and this is something we will see more in the future. So what's happening? What's being done about these problems? Well, the good news is that the vendors are awake and vendors get it. They understand that we have to do something, and they've been doing quite a bit. Phone manufacturers, for example, have been working on fixing the Bluetooth user interface issue I just showed to you on the video regarding Kabir. We've been working with many of these players. For example, Symbian has been doing quite a bit of security feature add-ons to the latest version of the Symbian operating system. And for example, they've introduced a program called Symbian Signed. Let me first show you the difference in the user interface of these latest phones. I have here with me a Nokia E90, which is the latest Nokia communicator, running Symbian Series 60 3rd edition feature pack 1, known also as Symbian Series 60 version 3.1. And this is a device which, it's the best phone Nokia has ever made. Much better than the iPhone, I can tell you that. Much more responsive, nicer user interface, faster, all that. Has a GPS, has Wi-Fi, has 3G. However, I think more relevant to the question right now is the difference in the user interface. Let me try to find the right part from this video clip we shot last week in our labs. We have here 2 Symbian Series 60 3rd edition phones on the table. On the left side we have a Nokia E60, which is a year old, shipped last July or last June or so. On the right side we have Nokia E90. And what we're going to do is that we'll take the Kabir virus, infect the device, and we are in a safe area so we can actually do this, and see what happens when it tries to beam this Symbian virus to these new devices. Now, it's important to notice that these are both Symbian Series 60 3rd edition phones, and even if they would accept the Kabir virus, they wouldn't get infected. But that's not the point. The point is how the user interface has changed when you receive such a Bluetooth transmission. So first, with the E60 phone, it receives the message just like we saw from the video earlier, and you again have the choices of yes and no. Would you like to receive message via Bluetooth? And of course the name of the sending phone is user configurable, so if you've changed the phone name to something else, it will show that as the name. If you go here and click the no button, it will operate just like it did on the older phones, and you press no, the phone that's sending out Kabir will send the Kabir virus again and again and again ad infinitum. It will never stop as long as you are within the range. And if you try to use the phone for anything else, like if you try to make a phone call, nothing happens. You press the buttons, nothing happens. You can't do it. You try to go to the menu, that's the menu button in E60, nothing happens. So as you see, that's the end result. So let's fast forward to what happens with the E90, which was shipped in May or June this year. So this is a new version of the same operating system, little bit updated with the feature pack 1 feature set. And when it receives the file transmission, it will show up on screen exactly with the same message. Let me fast forward a bit. Or did I just miss it? Yeah, here we go. Receive message via Bluetooth. And then when you go and click the no button, ta-da, they fixed it. It remembers. If you watch closely, it actually shows you an active Bluetooth connection icon. So the connection is there, but it's not re-questioning you. So that's, of course, what it should have been doing from the beginning. And this is, of course, going to change the situation in the future. It's great to see that the vendors are up and listening about what we should be doing about this. So a few words about the Symbian Sign program. This is a mechanism where Symbian approves the applications that are written for Symbian, and the approved applications get signed. And by default, today's Symbian phones will not install applications that haven't been signed. Depending on the market and on your phone, you can go to settings and turn it off, which is what most of the power users do because they want to install lots of different applications which haven't been signed yet. But by default, and for the normal end user, this is something that will make sure they will only be installing applications that have been reviewed and signed by Symbian. Then there are different capabilities at different levels depending on what kind of certificate is attached to the signing. So the application can do only certain things if it hasn't been signed. Or then depending on the actual certificate, it only gets access to certain APIs. The most crucial APIs like making phone calls or sending data around or the radio interface are restricted and only accessible when it has been approved by the manufacturer. And if you just think about this a little bit and think about other operating systems, I think this is the only widely distributed, hundreds of millions of devices out there operating system which does this by default, where you have to have the applications signed in order to use them. Vista does this for drivers, for nothing else. But possibly the most interesting development right now on these mobile devices is mobile spyware and mobile spy tools. And these are applications that once running on the smartphone will steal information and send it out from the phone. That's all they do. So this means it's not obvious whether these are illegal or not. These are being made by commercial companies. There's one, for example, operating from Bangkok, another one operating from Italy, another one operating from somewhere else, which are manufacturing and selling these spying tools. And the typical marketing slogan is that you can use this tool to monitor your spouse. You want to know what your wife is doing? Install this to her phone and you'll know everything. We think that much of these programs are actually being used illegally to spy on people without their knowledge or for espionage kind of purposes. There are different tools, targeted tools and untargeted tools. Targeted tools means that once you go and buy one of these spying tools, you have to tell which phone you are going to run it on. And typically this is done by tying the program to only run on a phone with a certain IMEI code. And the IMEI code is the unique code which, for example, is used by the GSM operations. This is, in our opinion, probably being done by the spyware authors or spying tools authors as a method of copy protection more than anything else. But then there's untargeted spyware which will run on any phone regardless of the restrictions. So what kind of information do spying tools like this steal? Well, text messages. Every time you send or receive a text message, phone call information, voice recording, including turning on the microphone on the phone that's being spied. So then the spyer can listen into whatever you're speaking close to your phone, even if you're not having a phone conversation. And even the physical location of the phone. And there are a range of vendors doing this in different parts of the world. Some of them are specializing in software-based solutions. Some of them are selling you devices, so a ready-made phones which have these spying features built in. This is a screenshot from one of the vendors' pages. They don't like us for a number of reasons. Partly because we are blocking these spying tools from running on the phones that we are protecting with our mobile phone antivirus. So here's a long rant about how F-Secure is a a illegal company because we block their spying tools and detailed instructions on how to uninstall our product from the phones that you want to spy on. This is one of the Italian vendors. NeoPhone spy phone software allows user to listen to surrounding. His call is connected without any changes on the display, without any ring, no lock, no backlight, or whatsoever. Please buy now. 199 euros. Let's have a look at this in practice. We have a setup here where we have a Nokia E70. And this is a phone which looks normal, acts normal, but it has a spying tool installed on it previously. And if Jarno now browses around the phone, for example, looks at the task list over there, there's nothing running. It is running, but it's not visible in the task list. And if we go to the menu, to the installed programs, there's nothing special here. Same thing if you go to the installation log and see what programs have previously been installed to the phone based on the installation log of the phone. It lists all the programs that have been installed to the phone since it was purchased. Well, there's a range of products. And this is the spyware itself. It's called RBackup Pro, which sounds pretty innocent. Most end users wouldn't find the log to begin with, but if they would have a look at it, they probably wouldn't suspect that title program. So let's have a look. We're now trying to make a demo of calling this and using this phone from another device. So what I have here is another phone, and I'm simply going to... should I make a phone call first?
Yeah, try the phone call first.
Okay, let's see.
Yeah,
So
move it a bit.
I'm calling the victim number. It's calling a phone number in Finland, and it should ring if the operators just roam correctly. That's always a bit problematic when you are in North America. So let's see. We were actually trying with different operators earlier today, including T-Mobile and AT&T, and tried to lock the operator to make sure it would actually get the call through.
Yeah, try SMS.
Let me retry calling. It's dialing. Okay.
Okay, so we got the call. I'm answering the call.
Hello, Jarno.
Hello.
How are
Did
you?
hear about Halvar?
Oh yeah, Halvar, yeah. Did you hear about jailhalvar.com?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I did.
All right. Talk to you. Bye-bye. Let's try something else. Let's try...
See now?
right. Okay. Show very...
So here we have the icon for data traffic. And normally, if you're not browsing the web or anything else, you're not seeing much of any data traffic happening. But now as we have the spying tool installed on the phone, pretty soon after the phone call has been ended, it should contact the server of the spying tool and upload the data there.
And this is something which is an operating system feature of showing that there's an open data connection, a GPRS connection from the phone. And they haven't been able to spoof that. So if the user is really careful, he would see after every phone call that there's a brief connection or data connection from the phone.
Yeah. I'll send an SMS message to the phone.
I can do it.
Okay.
Or actually, you go ahead and do it. I'll check this. So now we're going to send an SMS from the phone to the phone which is being spied on. And while Jarno is doing that, I'm going to go online and double check what's going through.
Okay, so here's an SMS message being sent from just an innocent phone, the victim phone, containing all kinds of interesting information. It might be that this information might be interesting for your wife or perhaps for a reporter if you happen to be an important person. And then let's wait once again.
The funny thing is that... yeah, let's see if it goes through.
Yeah, and just love the US carriers.
Yeah, it works. No, the US carriers work fine. We have many in audience. Okay, so we got the
here
message through.
we can see the data traffic.
Yeah.
So immediately after the SMS message arrived, it's opening a data connection to somewhere and transferring data from the phone. Something that shouldn't normally happen.
So now the person who is doing the spying can log in to the website of the vendor that's behind this tool, and he has a full log of everything that's been going on. So here is the details of the voice call. There was a voice call made today at that time, and it lasted 18 seconds. So we discussed 18 seconds about Halvar Flake being stopped at the border. The SMS message that was being sent is right here, and as you can see, it contains the name of the sending phone, the number of the sending phone, and the details. And it also regularly records where the user is. So today, at this time of the day, we were at cell ID 731 at AT&T network in country code 310, which is USA, and that area code. And if you have a cell tower map, you can use this to figure out where in the world this person is. And as he travels around, it will constantly send this out. So that's spy tool in action. If you paid attention, you noticed that the phone that was actually being spied on was Nokia E70, which is the Symbian Series 60 3rd edition phone. And we just talked about Symbian Series 60 3rd edition and how they only run signed code. Well, the nasty truth is that that particular spying tool is Symbian signed. This is exactly the nightmare scenario. It has been approved and signed with the certificate. And that's how it gets to run. Otherwise, it wouldn't be able to operate and get all that information. How come this has happened? Well, apparently, we don't know for a fact, but apparently through social engineering. This spying tool has been manufactured and then submitted for the Symbian signed process with the name RBackup Pro. And it has been specified that this is a remote backup program. It will remotely make a backup copy of your information on the phone. And that's, of course, exactly what it does. So apparently it has been tested and found to operate as documented, and it has been signed. So when the application was approved, everything was working as documented. And that's apparently what's been going on in here. We will probably now see what exactly will be the next step. There is a revocation mechanism in this program, but it has never been used as far as we know. So what about iPhone? iPhone, of course, rocks in many ways. But there's been quite a bit of interesting developments on it. Unfortunately, there was a conflicting speech during this speech in the Turbo Talks by Charles Miller from the guys at explodingiphone.com. We'll probably hear exactly what was being discussed there later on. And if you look at pros and cons, like what are the factors affecting malware development on this device? The things that hinder it include, of course, that it's a closed platform. You can't put third-party applications on it. There is no software development kit available. And it's hard to program because of those reasons. The most typical way of getting viruses for other phones is Bluetooth transmissions. There is Bluetooth here, but you can't use it for transferring files. The Bluetooth in iPhone only supports the headset profile, so you can only use it to connect to a hands-free device. And the file system is not accessible by the user by default. There's no file manager, no nothing. So those are against malware writing. Things that probably then play to the other side or the other direction. It has the user base. Well, only a few 100,000 devices now, but it's growing fast. Will probably continue to grow for quite a while. And there's lots of eager hackers playing around with it, very interested in what's in there and playing with different developments on it. And of course, this is the first phone from Apple, which means they probably got something wrong. There probably are some bugs in there and some vulnerabilities left. So my best guess is that, yes, there will be iPhone malware. There might be iPhone viruses, probably more likely than not. And probably in the fairly near future too. But I suppose we'll just have to wait and see. And while we're talking about iPhone, while we were testing iPhone in Finland, of course, in Finland it gets pretty cold in the winter. So we were wondering about how well it will work during the winter months, and we've actually posted a video about this to our YouTube channel, which you can check if you go to youtube.com/FSLabs, where we are playing around with a iPhone in a freezer. We put it down to minus 20 degrees Celsius and then try to figure out whether it still works. And we found lots of interesting things, including the fact that, normally you would use a phone with gloves during the wintertime, but iPhone doesn't simply work with gloves. But it otherwise works fairly well. It is very cold. It's very hard to use it because of the metal parts which get really cold, and it will actually, your tongue will stick into it if you touch it with your tongue. But I suppose it's pretty good for a first try. That's on our YouTube channel, which has quite a bit of other videos you might want to check out later on. It's at youtube.com/FSLabs. And while you are surfing, you might also want to try us out. Surf to F-Secure.mobile with your phone, with your phone's browser. If you're running a Windows phone or a Symbian phone, you can get our antivirus on your device and our firewall on your device and play around with it if you're so inclined. So we are not just making antiviruses, but also firewalls for these smartphones, which is especially important for the fact that, for example, this phone has Wi-Fi. As long as you're in the operator's 3G or GPRS network, it doesn't really matter because you're behind the operator's firewall. But when you go to the Starbucks Wi-Fi hotspot, there's no firewalls unless you have one in your phone. So we do believe that in the future we will see more and more for-profit malware. We'll see more native malware for third edition phones, possibly using different exploits to get in there. More Windows mobile malware, possibly BlackBerry malware. By the way, there are spy tools available for BlackBerry as well. The same tool we were showing here also has a version for BlackBerry. So that's pretty much the only malware or malicious code we've seen against BlackBerry so far. And we'll probably also see Wi-Fi worms, not just for phones, but also for Windows. And just think about a Wi-Fi worm jumping from one Windows laptop to another Windows laptop just because they are too close to each other. And that's perfectly possible. Some probably will happen sooner or later. And there are ways to gain access to these devices, different possible vulnerabilities and mechanisms like over-the-air updates or UMA, Universal Mobile Access, which will probably be targets for attacks on these devices. I wrote an article about these things for Scientific American last year. I have a couple of extra copies of that article with me, so if somebody wants a copy, meet me after the presentation. This fairly long look at all the developments we've seen on this thing from the very beginning. Now we have been looking at this threat now for a couple of years. The situation is fairly good. Right now it's unlikely for most users in the world to get really infected by a mobile phone virus. And if we play our cards right, that's the way it will stay. If the mobile phone vendors and the mobile phone operating system manufacturers and the security companies keep it up like it's been going so far, things will turn out to be quite different to what turned out to be the situation on the PC side. When PC viruses appeared in 1986, nobody cared. It took a 10-year ramp up before anybody really started caring about viruses on the PC side. And as an end result, we have 300,000 PC viruses today. If we play our cards right, we will not be having 300,000 mobile viruses in 20 years from now. Thank you very much.